Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to be continuing our learning in Torah Shlomo from the Yanuka, Rav Shlomo Yehuda, Beri Shlita. And we've been learning about the form and the pnimiyut of different letters, the Hebrew letters. And we're in this one idea of the difference between the pei and the bet. The pei, we said, is the idea of taking for yourself and bringing into yourself, whereas the bet is the idea of taking in, but in order to give out. Right? The pei comes up to receive and folds itself back inside of itself, guarding all of things for itself, whereas the bet receives, and it has an opening going outwardly. We're going to continue learning on this idea in the same Torah, and it says like this: V'lechen Batya. Batya is also with a bet, right? Batya bat Pharaoh. She inyana od bet. She's the idea of the letter bet. Zachta limtzoet Moshe. She merited to find Moshe, which is the aspect of the mem, Moshe Rabbeinu, and to cling to the Shechinah by way of this. The daughter of Pharaoh, she is who rescued Moshe out of the water, and that was her connection to the Shechinah. Mitoch sheivdila atzma minyana od pei shel Paro. How did she get that? Because she made a differentiation between her and her father, which is the pei of Pharaoh, which is the taking again to indulge for yourself without wanting to share. When she went to go purify herself in the Yaor, right? Why was she in the water when she found Moshe? Because she was going to the mikveh. Why is she going to the mikveh? She was doing Giyur, she was converting, she was leaving her father's ways in order to come into a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And immediately she found the Shechinah, she found Moshe Rabbeinu coming by in a basket. כמו שנאמר, ותרד בת פרעה לרחוץ על היאור. Right, the daughter of Pharaoh went down to bathe herself in the Nile. ואמר רבי יוחנן בשם רשב"י, במסכת סוטה. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, מלמד שירדה לרחוץ מגלולי אביה. She went down to wash. What did she go to wash from? The defilements, the blemishes, the avodah zarah of her father. ובזה דווקא בעניין עוד bet. That's how she attached herself to the letter bet. That she went in the path of tefillah, that is compared to water, like it's written, shifchi kemayim libech, pour out like water your heart. Right? So you see that the heart and tefillah and water are connected. And that is the way of itkansut, which is what we were talking about, this gathering, this going inside of yourself, ba'avur hashpa'a ramuza ba'ot bet. But right, so you're gathering, you're in gathering, itkansut, you're going inside yourself, but in the way of bet and not in the way of pei. Right? Pei is the way of Pharaoh, her father, which everything was for me. Everything is me. She wanted to disconnect herself from that way, and she wanted to come in that I want to receive, I want to bring into myself and guard myself and make a kli to receive shefa, but in the way of a bet that it's open moving forward to spread it out. Right? You want to draw down chesed, you want to draw down the life of Hashem down to this world. ובזה הייתה מנתקת עצמה מהרע של פרעה. Right? Paro, this pay, which is taking for yourself. Once you take for yourself, what's the rest of the words? Reish, the letters Reish, Ayin, Hey. Ra. Taking for yourself is bad. She wanted to detach herself from the Ra'ah. ובכה ודווקא בדרך ההשפעה והחסד שמצד המים. She wanted to be engaged with giving and receiving on the side of water. ומפני שחביבה מידת החסד לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, לקח קרא למשה בשם שנתנה לו בתיה משה. Since chesed, doing good for others, is so precious to Hashem, Hashem called Moshe after the fact that she pulled him out of the water, that she did a chesed in the water. She wanted to get ashpa'ah and connection through the water, which is all about giving a flow over to others, right? And Moshe and Hashem honored her and respected her and her step towards doing good, and gave that Hebrew boy this name, right? Moshe. Al Shem Shemina Mayim Mishitihu. From the water he was pulled out. על אף שהיו לו שמות נוספים, כמו שאמרו במסכת מגילה, even though he had different names, right? Moshe had 7 or 10 names. Yekutiel, Avigdor, Tov, Tuvia, Moshe, I can't remember the other ones. But Moshe had a few names. A lot of them were much more Hebrew sounding, a lot of them were much more Jewish sounding, right? But this one that was picked was to honor the step that Batya, Bat Pharaoh, she took to convert and to leave all of the filth of Pharaoh. לכן, מה שגילתה בתיה את משה היה דבר מתוך שנתקע עצמה מדרך המצרים והלכה ליאור, שהוא יוד אור. ליאורי, he tried to make it his light. And the first act, one of the first acts that Moshe Rabbeinu witnessed in the world was this woman, his adopted mother, right, taking him out of the water. What does that mean? She went to wash herself on the Ye'or. What's the Ye'or? Yud Or. The light of Yud. ופנתה אל הדבקות והתבודדות וזכתה לראות את אור השכינה. She turned to a path of connection to Hashem, a path of secluding yourself in oneness with Hashem, to see the light of the Shechinah. מה שאין כן פרעה, שעל האף שבידל את עצמו והלך ליאור לבדו. So too Pharaoh also did התבודדות. Pharaoh, it says in the Torah outright, he would go to the river by himself. He would go to the river by himself and spend time there. כמו שאמרו בתנחום, it says also in the Midrash in Shmot Rabbah, שמפני שהיה משתבח בעצמו ואומר שהוא אלוה ואינו צריך לנקביו, since he would praise himself and say, I'm a God, I don't need to go to the bathroom, I don't have waste, I'm perfect. לכך היה יוצא בבוקר ליאור. So in the morning, what is it? He's a human being like the rest of us. What would he do? He went in the morning, early in the morning when everybody's sleeping, he would go into the river and do his needs there. הנה כל דרך התבדלות של פרעה הייתה רק לצורך עצמו והנאתו. The only reason Pharaoh separated himself, unlike his daughter, unlike a person that does itbududut in order to connect to the world and to connect to Hashem, they seclude themselves to connect to everything, right? To the source. He secluded himself and went to do itbududut only for himself, only for his own physical pleasure. וכעניין אות פ' הרומזת על דרך התכנסות בעבור נטילת כל השפע לעצמו והנאתו. This is the letter P, paro, right? P, ra'a. Pay is taking for yourself, only for your own benefit, receiving shefa and keep it in yourself like the letter, right? That the letter curves itself back into itself. That is a bad way, that's a crooked way, that's a horrible way. And therefore they turned this river, the Nile, into an idol, into a form of worship. The water that came out of that river was used for bad, was used for Ra'ah. Ra'ah, by the way, was also a god, an Egyptian god, the eye of Ra, right? And that's what Pharaoh said, don't go into the desert now, Ra'ah is there. He saw Ra'ah, but what did he see? He saw that we were going to get attacked by Ra'ah, this god that he believes in. The Ra'ah was his own Ra'ah, that he got all of his soldiers destroyed and thrown into the water, all of their gold taken from them for the Jews. And Pharaoh sent him to exile into Nineveh. He had to go from Egypt to Iraq. That's the ra'ah that he saw in his life, right? וכעניין דור הפלגה שהשתמשו בכוח האחדות והתכנסות השפעה על מנת להרה. This goes all the way back to the first generation, one of the first generations that we had, which was the generation of separation, the building of the Tower of Babel, right? That they all had this itkansut, they had this gathering. They had the pay level of gathering though. They came together for a negative purpose to come against Hashem, right? The Freemasons, right? The original builders. That's where it all starts. And Nimrod, what does it mean Nimrod? We will rebel. He was the leader of all of those people. We will rebel. Who? Against who? Against Hashem, right? They used the power of pay, the power of achdut, of unity, of coming together, of gathering as a people to do one thing for a negative thing. What? For the Tower of Babel, right? And then what did Hashem do? Oh, you have unity, you can all get along, you can all talk. One simple thing, 70 languages now. Now communicate. Right? That's all Hashem had to do. Not so simple. Right? Not so simple. Right? Back then they had one language, they were all talking, they were all coming in their unity to come against God. That's what they used their unity for. Hashem said, okay, you guys can be unified, but now talk to each other. 70 languages. Right? Some of them also became monkeys, some of them became elephants. That's the bracha, Meshanei Abriot, right? Not that we came from monkeys, monkeys came from humans. They were the cursed humans.
Also kangaroos, yeah?
Kangaroos also from that?
Yes, it's Australia.
I didn't know about that. But kangaroo, and now they live in Australia. It could be. They used to live here, and now they live there. I don't know. But kangaroo also is rooted in the Hebrew word. Kangaroo. Here is where the gur, here is where the joey, what do you call it, joey cub, right? A kangaroo cub is called a joey. That's where it lives. Kangaroo. Here is its gur. Here is its pup, its baby. There's a lot of these words that are rooted. Baruch Hashem. So this was the story of Pharaoh and Batya. V'derech hatzira v'hitkensut al manat lashpia. How do you stop shefa? How do you gather shefa in order to give? Shekeneged inanot bet. That's the idea of bet. What is bet again? Bet is shamayim, aretz, and my bracha. When I come to eat food, I want to receive shefa. It's not my chidush. It's the Yanuka, we learned it last time. Right? When I take a piece of food, what am I doing? Essentially, I'm about to consume for myself. Right? If I do it like Pharaoh, so I just eat the food, no blessing, eat, spit it out, keep walking, nothing changed. I just consumed for myself. But when I do it in a Jewish way, in a connected way, in a Shechinah way, so then I make a bracha. That's the bet, not a pay. I receive from heaven, I draw down the blessing by way of my vav, which is my heart, which is how much I put into my bracha, and then I elevate and I connect the aretz, which is the fruit or the food that I'm eating. Once I do that, I make a kli, I have a box, but it's open moving forward. All that shefa now that I consume, the spiritual and the physical apple that I ate, is in me, but willing to go out looking forward. And if you want to see a deeper secret that he said here, look at the bet. The bet has a regel behind it, has a foot behind it, right? What is that? Anything that comes before the bracha is arura dama avurecha. It's cursed. It's pointing to the aleph, which is arur, which is cursed. Anything comes before a bracha, I can't engage with. Once I make the bracha, it has to be moving forward. It's not just for me. And if you make a bracha in a way of paro, so then it's pei ra'ah, my mouth, and this pei, and this gathering, and this using, and this taking for myself, it's bad. It's not good. So how do we do it in the way of bet? How do we do it in a proper way? How do we rectify the heart, which the heart is that middle vav, right? Again, the bet is vav, vav, vav. The middle vav is your heart, your bracha. The way you unify the top vav, which is heavens, and the lower vav, which is the land. How do we do it? How do you rectify the vav, the middle vav, the heart of the bracha? The heart of how you engage in shefa and you take things, what you want to give over to others? You have to know and work and practice on separating yourself from the whole entire world, physically and mentally and spiritually. שכאשר בודל אדם את עצמו מכל הנבראים ומגיע ובא אל הנקודה הפנימית שלו, בא מאיר אור מיוחד לו לבדו אצל הבורא ברוך הוא, וזה זוכה הוא להיות כאות י' זעירה. When you're able to separate yourself from the world and to come to the most inner point, which is just Hashem, the deepest point that you can get to, where your job, your title, your family, your friends, your Rebbe, your teachings, what you've learned, what you've sinned, what you've done good, separate yourself completely from everything external. That's the most deepest part of Hitbodedut, and you get to your core. What you're going to find there is Hashem. It's the most inner point. And when you do that, you make yourself into the aspect of the letter Yud. A small Yud. Yud Zeira is just a dot. The Nekuda Achi Primit, the most internal point. That's what's called Yud. HaMeramezet Le'inyan HaShiflut. This is humility. This is to be humble. Realize that at your core, all you are is a letter Yud. You're a little scribble on a page. That's small. ומתוך כך בא לשפע החסד הנרמז ב-ye'or. By way of just being that little Yud, you will come into all of the blessing that is the Nile, that is ye'or. What's ye'or? Yud or. You get the Mayan Geula Pratit. What's Yud or? The ye'or is the Egyptian Nile. might not be so blessed. Yud or, I got to such a level of humility that I see light. What is that? That is me'en geula pratit. It's a taste, it's a touch of your own personal redemption. ויכולו להתפלל בשפיכת לב כמים ולגלות את כל ליבו לפני השם יתברך. Now you can pray with a heart that's pouring out like water. You're tapping back into the water of Batya, of the water of Pharaoh, of Moshe, slicha. You're tapping into that part of water that's flowing, of chesed, that's flowing from a pure place. And you can pour out your heart to Hashem, and you can talk to Hashem like water that's pouring out of... Not only that, אלא שמתוך שלמות האות בית, בכל האמור זוכה האדם לחיבור לאות מם. The more you connect to the letter bet, right, which is a bracha with your whole heart, which is itbodedut, which is to be alone, which is to get to the most inner nikudah of yourself, to receive shefa in order to share it with the rest of the world. Now you can connect to bet, to mem. What's mem? Batya, he inyan haot bet, v'Moshe hu inyan haot mem. Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh that converted and saved Moshe, she's the bet. Moshe is the mem. ומתוך דרך התכנסות וכוונת הלב ככל האמור גורם להמשכה וההשפעה של החסד לעולם כאמור כעניין משיתי הוא שהיא עניין המם של משה. Now once you do this you can connect your humility and your bracha and your heart. You can now connect to the mem, which is התכנסות דרך הלב, gathering in the way of water, in the way of shefa, in the way of Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Caring for everybody. And that's mishitu min hamayim, to bring it out of the water, which is the mem of Moshe. Ve'u sod vedibarta bam. What's Batya and Moshe? Vedibarta bam. We have a commandment from the Torah to speak about them. What are them? I'm going to give another hint that I don't know if he writes here. I don't want to take it away, but let's see. He says it. I'm not going to, let's let the Yanuka say it. So connecting the bet of Batya with the mem of Moshe, that gives you the mitzvah of Vedibarta, bam, bet mem. Haole berashet evot, Batya, Moshe, daughter of Pharaoh and Moshe. Shu inyan geula, which is the idea of the final redemption. כמו שכתב במגלה עמוקות, like the מגלה עמוקות writes in פרשת ויתחנן, שלעתיד לבוא יהפוך מלך המשיח את אות בית למם. מגלה עמוקות says, in the future the Mashiach is going to come and he's going to switch the letter bet into the letter mem. Secret that we're going to have to figure out what that means. ונודע שבכל עליית מדרגה, anytime you have an ascension of a level, על אף שמתעלה עד כדי שינוי שמו ובחינתו הראשונה, you make an ascension, right? You have an aliyah, you go up at a higher level. You switch, so to say, you can even change your name, right? On what's a name? Again, is an expression. So it's for a lot of people for many years, I was just Eliyahu, and then I got a daughter, and now I ascended a level, and I have a different name, Abba, right? Sometimes we just ascend in life, and we get different names than we had to begin with. שהוא כנגד עניין אות מם, בכל מקום אינו מאבד שמו ועניינו העיקרי הראשון. So once this bet switches into a mem, that doesn't mean it loses the essence of what bet was. I didn't stop becoming Eliyahu because I became Abba. I'm just Eliyahu and Abba now. I have just a general sense, and I have a more higher, refined, higher sense. No.
Soon.
Definitely not rabbi. That's what the rabbi is what we call those that we want to separate from. Chacham takes then. Rosh Miftifta. Come on, guys, give more titles. Let me get closer to the pay of Pharaoh here. Shu keneged inyan od bet, right? Even though the bet will become a mem, like the Megaleh Amukot says, that doesn't mean that we lose the bet. That doesn't mean that we lose the first essence. ומשניהם יחד נעשה צירוף של דיברת בם. The combination of the two together, the permutation of the two together becomes vedibarta bam. You shall speak on them. Classically, it's Torah. I'm like biting myself to not say the sod that I want to say, but here, the Yanuka put it here. What's dibarta bam? What does it mean to talk on them? That's the bet of Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'aretz, the beginning of the written Torah, and the mem from Me'ematay Korim Shema Ba'arvin, how the oral Torah starts. The Talmud starts with a mem, And the Torah, the written Torah, starts with a bet. Vedibarta bam, what's the commandment of learning, of speaking Torah? To make sure that you have oral Torah and written Torah, and you're learning both of them, and you're speaking about both of them. This is the completion of the oral Torah that gets included into the written Torah. This is part of the Geula, where we won't see that there's a bunch of laws and halachot, and that they seem so external and they seem so separate from the beautiful story of the Torah. No, they are unified. This is how you do it. This is how you keep that one. And how do you get deeper into that one? By learning this one. And it goes back and forth. This is the Vedibarta bam. And we'll stop here for today.